Don't stop.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman. My guest today is a really interesting guy because we talked about sex. We talked because he's a sex coach. And I had so many questions for him just about the world today because it's so different from whenever I was single. When I was single, well, is it different? Yes, it is different. It's a lot different because when I was single, I don't feel like couples were they didn't have open relationships. I feel like people just cheated back then. And none of our friends were in open relationships, or if they were, they didn't talk about it. And there was really no throuples, even though there were, but they weren't so mainstream like everything is today. And, I don't judge it. Like if you want to be in a throuple or you want to have an open relationship, and as long as you're not hurting the other person, great. Do whatever works for you and your partner. That's how I feel about it. I don't get it. For me and my husband, it would never work. I'm too jealous. I would have to cut somebody for even trying to touch my husband in an inappropriate way. So I couldn't imagine bringing somebody else into the bedroom because it just wouldn't. It's not for us. And we talked about it a long time ago. We were together for 3 months. And we're like, would we ever want to bring somebody else into the bedroom? And we both said no. And I think it has to do because both of our parents were before my dad died, my parents were married. His mom and dad are still together. And I think it's just how we were brought up, maybe. And it's just been instilled in both of us. And this is just who we are, and we're just not open. Do I find other guys hot and cute? Yes. Am I flirty sometimes? Yes. But it doesn't go past being flirty in a bar, and just not for me. So I had questions for this doctor, and just asking him just about how the world has changed, and how do you give advice to a throuple, and how do you talk to a polyamorous group of people that are together. Again, it's such a different world than it was whenever I was single. And I think if I was single again for any reason, I would have so much learning to do. I just went on vacation this past week with a group of friends, and they were all open relationships or they were single, and not judging them at all, but they cannot be off of Grindr and these apps, not even for 5 minutes. It's a constant search and seek, and let's find somebody. And sometimes they were finding somebody multiple times a day. Again, they're my friends, and I'm not judging. I feel like I don't even have the energy sometimes for my husband. So how could you have so much energy for so many people? But maybe it's just because I'm a couple of years older than them. Who knows? But even 15 years ago, one person was enough for me. And sometimes one person is too much for me. Sometimes I just want to be alone in my room with my lights off and not hear anybody's voice. But that's a whole nother episode. Enjoy my episode with this sex doctor. He gave me some great information. Maybe you want to reach out to him because you have a question. Maybe you need to schedule an appointment with him. Maybe you and your partner are thinking about opening up your relationship, or you've opened it up and you don't want it to be open. I think he can help you with all those things. So enjoy. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. Today I have Dr. Steven. He is a sex integrity coach. He's joining our show, and I have a ton of questions for him. So welcome to the show, Dr. Steven.
Thank you, Zach.
So you are a sex integrity coach. Explain to my audience what that means.
Well, sex integrity coach is my registered trademark for my business. And I am a licensed psychotherapist. I'm a certified sex therapist. I have specific training in clinical sexology, which is the science of sexuality.
Okay.
And I do a lot of education with clients, which really falls more in a coaching realm than in a psychotherapy realm. Mm-hmm. So for most of my career, I have functioned as a general psychotherapist while also having this specialization in sex therapy. But in the last few years, I have really kind of transitioned my practice more into coaching individuals and couples around what I call sexual integrity.
And so if a couple comes to you, are they having relationship problems, or are they having problems in the bedroom more? Is it a combo of both, or it could be all of it?
Well, a sex problem is a relationship problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes sexual problems lead to other conflicts in the relationship. Definitely, we know that other conflicts in the relationship do also create problems in the bedroom. So sometimes when couples come to me, they are just trying to sort this out. They don't know exactly which bucket to put it in. Yeah. And sexuality, which is the integrity piece, often gets fragmented away from the rest of our lives and the rest of our relationships. And it really needs to be included in a holistic mindset regarding health, mental health, physical health, sexual health.
Yeah. And one of my questions is, what kind of inspired you to kind of go down this route for your career? Is there something that you were just like, oh, I see this happening more and more, and it's something that needs help in your industry? What kind of drove you towards it?
Well, I made this decision many years ago. I was already a licensed psychotherapist. I was working in psychiatric hospitals, community mental health centers, and I was getting a lot of male clients that were dealing with sexual issues. And some of the female therapists didn't feel comfortable working with all of these guys, and I didn't have a problem with it. But I discovered I really am not properly prepared to be working in the field of sex therapy, because therapists in general are not trained in sex therapy. It's something that we have to get additional training and certification in after we've completed licensing requirements in our individual disciplines. Also, I was starting a private practice, and I was advertising that practice in a gay newspaper in Tennessee. In the 1980s.
Oh, wow. That's very risky.
Yeah. And that newspaper could only be distributed to gay bars and adult bookstores because of the content of the newspaper. Now, it wasn't pornographic in any way, but because it reached LGBT population, it couldn't be made available in public settings.
Wow.
So it was available in adult bookstores. And in Nashville, Tennessee in the 1980s, that city was full of adult bookstores and churches and strip clubs and Sunday school publishing companies. And so there was this huge dichotomy there with all of this sex business and all of the church business. And I started getting calls from people who would come into Nashville to adult bookstores from Kentucky, from rural Tennessee, from Alabama, from surrounding areas that would drive to Nashville because it was the closest place they could get to an adult bookstore.
Okay.
And they would see my ad for a therapist, and I'm advertising in this paper. And so I started having people call me dealing with all kinds of sexual issues, gay, straight, bi.
Can you talk about what some of those issues were that they were having back then to call you?
It's the same stuff people are dealing with today, because human sexuality is the same throughout world history.
Yeah.
There's nothing new happening today. We're just talking about it in some different ways and talking about it a little more. But some of it was about kinks and fetishes. Some of it was gay men who were in marriages to women and they didn't know how to come out. Some of it was stuff that was really kind of bordering on illegal. I did have a few situations where I had to call the police.
Oh, wow.
Things that were potentially harmful. And so around the same time, I went to a conference sponsored by a sex therapist. And after the conference, I went up and talked to her and said, I'm fascinated with your work. And I'm doing some of this work myself, but I haven't had your training and I don't feel prepared. And she gave me information about an organization that does continuing education, certification, and said, you're already doing this work. I really think you need to pursue the credentials as a sex therapist. Here in the U.S., you can practice sex therapy as long as you're a licensed therapist. You don't have to be certified. But the problem with that is that until you are certified, you likely don't have all the training that you need to work effectively on the subject.
Yeah. So I think that there's the overall generation, I think it's Z now that I just read a report about how it's 11% of a Generation Z are coming out as non-binary. They don't have a label anymore.
Right.
And then there's another large percentage, I'm Generation X, and we didn't talk about this when I was growing up about, what you were, gay, straight, bi, whatever. That none of that was ever spoken about when I was in high school. It wasn't until college until I discovered that, people were more open, but that was, the early 90s. What do you see different now, though? Because you have this new generation coming up where they're more open about their sexuality. A lot of people that are in their early 20s now don't want to put a label on it. You have kids coming out, in high school as, trans or non-binary, or even being in throuple relationships now. I mean, are you seeing all this coming into your practice?
I am seeing it, and it's being studied and considered by sex therapists, also by urologists. I was talking with a urologist in the last year, and he was telling me that urologists across the board are seeing younger men coming into their offices reporting erectile dysfunction.
Oh.
And that is my experience in my own practice as well. I treat more men in their 20s and 30s for erectile dysfunction than I do in their 50s and 60s.
Is it because they're not turned on by their partner, or if they're a man with a woman?
It's a few different things. One is Generation Z has less sex in this period of their life than baby boomers and Generation X did when we were in our 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And social media is what we're blaming for it.
Okay.
Because, my generation didn't have social media. And if you meet people, you're going to have to go out in the world and have face-to-face discussions with them.
Yeah, same.
And in those settings, you got to touch them and kiss them and smell them. And that's how relationships developed. And when you're on social media and you spend all of your time on social media, you don't have a lot of opportunities to practice that. And so there are some social skills that you are missing. And when you get in real life experiences with someone that you've only communicated with on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, you're actually seeing these people face to face. You might not feel like you have the confidence to manage that situation.
And how common is it so I actually had a guest several months ago on my show where she was married to her husband for 19 years. They had a son, and he went on a business trip to London. He came back from this business trip, and 19 years together again, she thought that they had a great marriage. And he said, I have to tell you something, I cheated on you. And she goes, oh no, what was her name? He goes, well, it was a man. And so he admitted that he hooked up with a guy on this business trip in London. A few months later, he came back to her and said, I need to tell you something. I've actually been cheating on you for the last 10 years with multiple people, mostly men. And she, got tested because she's like, what do I have? What's going on? And she's a true survivor because now she's talking about that, openly and stuff, and trying to help other people that maybe gone through something similar. But that seems to be a more common story where men are coming out, from her generation, which is she's probably close to my age, and these men are now feeling more comfortable in today's society to come out and realize that they weren't happy because they were gay their whole life. And is that something that you're seeing as well that's becoming more and more of a, I don't want to say trend, but more and more of what's happening in reality?
Well, I think younger men are not getting into marriages with women as much as my and your generation did.
Yeah.
Because they know that coming out is an option.
Yeah.
And so men who did get married and have been in long-term marriages, the more they see gay men out in the world holding hands, traveling together, being in their relationships, the more freedom they feel to express their authentic self as well. And sexual integrity is about telling the truth. Mm-hmm. It's about being transparent. It's about really digging within yourself and coming to terms with everything that you know about yourself as a sexual being and integrating that into your life. So sometimes there are many closets that people have to come out of.
Yeah.
They come out of the gay closet, then they come out of the kinky closet, then they come out of the non-binary closet. Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of a constant evolution to feeling safer and safer telling the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great that people are feeling more open to be able to be who they are and to, do what they want to do. I think it's great that we're hopefully continuously moving in that direction. I mean, obviously the people that you said that you had to kind of report to the authorities for, not that type of stuff, but people are into whatever they're into. As long as it's not hurting anybody, I say why not,
Right. And the stuff that I'm referring to is stuff that was potentially harmful to individuals. And those few cases that came to me were really wanting help to stop their behavior because they knew what they were doing was harmful. But, that's only happened maybe 3 times in my career span, almost 35 years.
Yeah. So are you seeing more people kind of discovering themselves in what they are into sexually and then moving away from their marriage because of that?
No, I'm not. So I saw more LGBT people in opposite sex marriages earlier in my career.
Okay.
So there were more people struggling with coming out issues 30 years ago than what I'll see today. It's very rare that I see someone today and they come in because they're having trouble coming out.
Okay. That's good though. I mean, that's how it should be.
Well, I think it means that the world is a little more educated. People are better informed. They have better understanding. Most people now can identify a few people they know who are LGBTQ.
Yeah.
Even if it's someone that they see on television, there are lots of television personalities that are out and open. There are politicians who are out and open. And so this is important modeling, not for coming out, but for telling the truth, for being authentic and taking the risk and knowing that it really doesn't matter what my education is, what my profession is. I can still come out. I don't have to stay in the closet.
Yeah. And just to say, there are a lot of politicians that are secretly in the closet too, right?
But that's true. And unfortunately, they are affiliated with a party that's the only way they can continue to function in that party. Yeah.
And we'll be right back. Okay, now back to the show. So I have a good size amount. I'm a gay man myself. I have a husband we've been together for almost 27 years. Monogamous, always been monogamous. Our group of friends though, it is, I don't know but one couple that we know that are monogamous now. And everyone is open, and I just have a one of my really good friends is going through a divorce. It was the first kind of gay divorce that's happened. And I have another couple that were getting married, and they decided to open up their relationship 6 months before they were going to get married, and then that didn't work out either. So is that a trend that you're seeing kind of in the gay LGBTQ plus community of there's not a lot of monogamy anymore? Because really, whenever I go to Provincetown last year with a group of 10 guys, and we were sitting at a dinner table, and all 9 of them were on their phones looking on Grindr and looking for a hookup, but they're all together. And I'm just like, what's going on? What's everybody on their phone for? And I said, put your phone down. They're like, oh no, you should go on Grindr. I'm like, I'm not interested in that. Like, I'm in a they're like, yeah, but you could just like see who's on there. I'm like, give me your phone and I'll look, but I don't want to have a profile. I don't want to do that. So is that what you're hearing? Like, most people are no longer monogamous in the kind of, I guess, gay men?
Well, that's a big can of worms you just opened.
Yeah.
Because one thing we have to do is define monogamy.
Yeah.
And humans in general, we are not innately wired to be monogamous. Even though you and your husband have been together for a long time and your relationship with each other is monogamous, you probably had sexual experiences with other people even before you met each other.
Oh, definitely. I was a big floozy before I met him. Yes.
Okay. And so humans are serial monogamous at best.
Okay.
I'm monogamous in this relationship, and then I'll be monogamous in this relationship, and so on. I think that you are right, that fewer gay couples have an expectation of monogamy. And it becomes problematic if they cannot effectively negotiate this with each other in a way that everybody is in agreement. Again, I'm going to bring up the phrase sexual integrity. It's about telling the truth. It's about being transparent. And there are people who are in open relationships and they don't know they're in an open relationship.
Yes, that was what was happened to my friends.
Right. And so I see that a lot in the straight community, among straight people. So, because it's one thing that when it gets discovered, it brings couples into sex therapy, straight couples. I've also worked with several straight swingers over the course of my career. And one of the things that I like about working with them is they have very good communication skills. They talk about a lot of stuff. And when you can talk about swinging and you can go to a swinger party and you can be there with your spouse and, know what each other's doing, that does require you to have some strength around communicating with each other. I don't have a preference for whether people be monogamous or non-monogamous. I think every couple has to work that out for themselves. But it's not just gay men who are less monogamous. I think straight people are less monogamous too. And I've worked with a fair number of straight couples that are trying to open their relationship who maybe identify as polyamorous.
Yeah, can we talk about that a little bit too? Because that seems to be. So I live in Boston. I live in a town called Medford, and it's right next door to a town, a little suburb. No, it's not a suburb. It's part of Boston, almost, called Somerville. And Somerville, Massachusetts, it supposedly has the most polyamorous community in the country, and it's you see it when you live there. You see couple, throuples basically walking down the street, all 3 of them holding hands, and it seems to be a very common thing. So, and then also people that live there, somebody that I worked with talked about, they were in a throuple, and people are very, very open with it. So is that becoming more common as well, do you think, being a throuple?
I think it's more common that people are considering it. Again, there's nothing new in the world of sex. Mm-hmm. And so polygamy has been accommodated in
that's true.
terms around the world throughout world history.
Yeah.
polygamy is illegal in the US. And so we talk about polyamory. But again, it's nothing new. It's always been there. People are just more honest and transparent about it today, which I judge is a good thing.
Yeah.
That people are more honest. But polyamory is a form of being open. Polyamory means multiple wives. And so it's not about hooking up with a different person periodically. It's about having one or more other consistent people in your life that you have a loving, intimate, sexual relationship with. And so, it could be a woman who has a husband and she also has a female partner.
Mm-hmm.
And the three of them may live together or they might not live together.
Yeah.
Sometimes people have a spouse and then they have someone that they engage in kinky behavior because they have similar kinks or fetishes. And so this is the person in their life that they just indulge that kink or fetish with. It really varies from one couple, throuple, polyamory unit to
another. And are you working more with straight couples or are you working more with gay couples?
Right now, I'm working with both. Early in my career, I saw more straight people than I did gay people, but, that was where I lived at the time in Tennessee. And I was working in agencies, hospitals, clinics that their caseload was mostly a heterosexual caseload. Since being in private practice and moving from Tennessee to Florida, the community I live in has a lot of LGBT people.
Yeah.
And so about 50% of my caseload now is LGBT, mostly gay men. But I see straight couples and mostly male couples. Occasionally I see lesbian couples, but they usually go to the lesbian therapist.
Yeah. And whenever you have a couple that's come into you and they are honest about their sexual integrity, so they're talking about what they are really looking for or what they're into or whatever, and maybe there was some cheating that happened or extracurricular activities outside the marriage, do you try to help guide the couples to maybe forgive each other and to try to get, or are you just kind of letting it play to see what's best for the couple?
Well, if they want to stay together, the ideal thing would be forgiveness and moving on.
Yeah.
And sometimes an affair is a catalyst for a couple to get more honest with each other. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be the end of the relationship.
Yeah.
And so I really coach people to move through this in the way they think is right for them. For some people, once they discover that their partner cheated, they are done. I'm never going to be able to trust him again. I don't ever want to see him again.
Yeah.
I want out of this relationship. And the reality is, throughout life, we are constantly evolving. And we are a little more honest, a little more transparent in our relationships with our partners 5 years in than we were 1 year in.
Yeah.
Because in that first year, we're still trying to be on good behavior. We're trying to hide some of our weaknesses and our grumpy moods. And 5 years in, 10 years in, the other person pretty much knows who you are.
Yeah.
At that point. And so I really think if you can accept, forgive, maybe establish some new rules in the relationship, that then the relationship can continue, but, it's relationship 2.0 or 3.0, and we're moving forward from this point now.
And I have another kind of question just about gay men now. So all these friends that are in relationships or not relationships, they're very open with, they're on Grindr and they're on all these apps and they're meeting sometimes multiple people in a day. And, when I was growing up living in South Beach, Miami in the 90s, condoms were, and you had to have it because there was a big AIDS crisis that was happening now. And now I haven't been single and with anybody else in almost 27 years. And it's a completely different world out there now where people are taking PrEP and there's no condoms being used and stuff. What is your thoughts on that? Where I know there's a big chance or your 99% chance you won't get HIV. But I asked my friends, like, there's all these other things that could happen just because you're on PrEP. So like, what if you get, herpes? That's something you have for the rest of your life. And they're like, oh, it's just a chance. And it seems like the mindset has completely changed from whenever I know 27 years is a long time ago, but it's completely changed where people are just more open and taking a risk, in my opinion.
Right.
Do you agree with that? Like, it's just, and do you think it's going to continue like that?
Well, I do think more people are taking risks, but younger people today are living in a different world than you and I grew up in.
Yeah.
So right at the time that I was coming out in the early 80s was when we started hearing about HIV.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to do a lot of education about safe sex and condoms and limiting the number of partners. And that's not the same world today because people are not dying as often from HIV today and have access to medical health care. And people are not contracting HIV today at the same rate that they did when you and I were coming out. So the thing with PrEP is it is 99% effective at preventing the spread of HIV. Condoms at best, in general, are only 75% effective.
Okay.
Trying to protect yourself from HIV, being on PrEP, would be a better decision than relying on a condom. PrEP does not prevent unwanted pregnancy. It is not going to prevent you from contracting herpes, HPV, gonorrhea, any other sexually transmitted disease out there. So that's why some people take PrEP and they also use condoms.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. I didn't think about the condom. I knew condoms weren't 100% either, but that's a really good statistic. That's 75%. So that's really good that helps me understand maybe more what they're doing as well.
Right. Yeah.
Can I ask you a personal question? Are you in a relationship yourself?
I am. I'm married. My husband and I have been together for 5 years.
Okay, great. And so does he ever feel like you're analyzing him with things whenever you're having any issue in your relationship? And I'm assuming this has helped your relationship being a sex integrity doctor.
Well, I think he is also a man who values honesty.
Okay.
And transparency. And so I think in that way, it helps because we have always been on the same page throughout our relationship.
Yeah.
This is a relationship where we're not going to keep secrets from each other. Neither one of us wanted that. Between the two of us, I am more emotional, and he is more practical.
Okay.
So I make a lot of decisions with feelings. He makes a lot of decisions with logic. I can make decisions with logic, and sometimes he makes decisions with feelings. But we are different in that way, and we know that, and it's not going to change. So we accept that about each other. I do analyze him sometimes, but not out loud. Just last.
Yeah. Do you only do people in person, or can someone contact you online to book an appointment and do it over Zoom?
Yeah, a third of my practice is virtual.
Okay, so anybody across the world, really, I guess, but the United States could.
Yeah, definitely with coaching. I have coaching clients, some outside the U.S., but mostly in the U.S. If it's for psychotherapy, then I'm licensed in 2 states, and I take on psychotherapy clients in the states that I'm licensed in, because that requires making a diagnosis, having a treatment plan. Psychotherapy is about diagnosing a mental disorder or sexual disorder. And, I don't take insurance, but sometimes people want to file it with their insurance. And so I have to give a diagnostic code and procedure code and those things.
That's great. Can I talk about your book?
Yeah.
So you have a book called Sexual Integrity, Finding the Courage to Be Yourself. And what kind of, is it your clients that you were meeting with kind of inspired you to write this book?
Yes, I make reference to several scenarios in the book. And those scenarios are not just about one specific individual, because I have worked with a lot of different people who are coming out of the closet. I've worked with a lot of different people who are sex abuse survivors.
Yeah.
Worked with a lot of people who are kinky in, multiple ways. And so many of the same themes come up over and over and over with my clients. And many of them had the same challenges that they are trying to overcome. So the book is encouraging people to lean in to who they are instead of repressing it or lying about it. And it's also about finding courage within yourself to be honest. Often when people lie, it's not because they're bad people, but they don't feel safe telling the truth.
Okay.
If I tell you the truth, there's something I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose your friendship. I might lose the relationship. I might lose my job. I might lose my reputation. It's scary to go out in the world and let people see you authentically as you are.
Yeah.
And it's even scary in our relationships with our significant others. And a lot of people begin their partnerships from this place of secrecy and not being completely honest and authentic. Again, not because they're bad, but because they fear they won't be liked or loved if they're completely transparent.
Yeah. I think you have such an interesting career, and I'm sure you've heard some amazing stories. And I think everybody should go and get your book. So it's just so everyone knows, you can go to drstevendavidson.com. His book is also, I found it on Amazon as well, but you can buy it directly from his website, it looks like. And they can book appointments on your website too if they'd like to talk with you. Is that right?
Right, yeah. And so you can also buy the book in bookstores. If they don't have it in the bookstore, you can request that they order it. Some people want to go to their favorite bookstore to get books instead of buying it on Amazon. It's available for wide distribution.
That's awesome. I will, if you don't remember this website, just look at the description of this podcast or this video, and I will put the website and a link to Dr. Steven's website. So go visit him. And I think you may get some clients. I think a lot of people need some help with sexual integrity. So I hope that they feel good and want to reach out. So
thank you.
You were a great guest. Thank you so much for being on. And anything else you'd like to tell people about yourself before we close?
I also have a YouTube channel. It's at Sexual Integrity Coach. There are sex education videos that I have been putting up over the last 2 years on that channel. And so it's another way to see some of my work. There are different topics that I cover. I try to not be repetitive in those videos. And it's out there as a really good resource for people if they want to get education through YouTube.
Yeah, I took a look through your YouTube channel before earlier this morning, and it's you got a good, nice YouTube channel. So I'll put a link to that in the description of this as well. So
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Dr. Steven, for being on. I appreciate it. Be sure to give us a follow and give a comment and tell us what you thought about the interview with Dr. Steven. So thanks, everybody, and have a good week. Thanks, Dr. Steven.
Bye.